Hey everyone, hey and welcome back to yet another episode of Battle Rap Resume, yet another episode of Jehsticulations, which is something we do incredibly infrequently on this show. You may have noticed that the majority of the time we're discussing battles, we're discussing battle rap, but every now and then I like to dip my toe into music. Occasionally it'll be somewhat battle rap related in that Venn diagram, with battle tapes. The first two editions I did with Dave. We did C Major's 10,000 Hours and Kruger's Lazy EP. Also did one with Michael. We looked at Ogmios' Last Picnic. Definitely check those episodes out. But altogether, in podcasting, I'm a huge fan of musical criticism. My first podcast that got me into podcasting is called Down in the Hole, which I did with my good friend Sam Wiles about the music and life of Tom Waits. So if you're interested in Tom Waits, that's online. Definitely check that out. I also do another podcast concurrently called Alpha Metallica, where I'm going through every single song of Metallica with fans from all around the world. But, you know, that's enough horrific product placement. Today we are going into Jehst, probably my favourite rapper, I think. You know, it's hard to decide, but I think ultimately he's the one that I come back to. He's the one that makes me feel things, you know, makes me ponder, and I just can't get enough of his music. Yeah, the show is called Jehsticulations, and effectively what it is we're going through the entire discography of Jehst, album by album. I started off on my own, where I did I actually did Premonitions, the debut EP, then I did Return and the Drifto. These were the first things on the Battle Rap Resume channel that weren't battle rap related and weren't compilations. So my first foray outside of that thing, and it's taken a long time, but eventually we did the third edition, which was Falling Down with Jonathan, and now we are back doing The Dragon of an Ordinary Family, again with Jonathan Rimmer. He's very much the Paul Foot, modern day equivalent. How's it going, man?
Cheers, man. yeah, good. How's it going, Tom?
I'm well, and you know, I use that as an obscure reference. I only know Paul Foot because there's a Paul Foot Award in Private Eye. He's like an old investigative journalist, and you yourself, you're very much the Scoopmeister, is that right?
Well, yeah, Johnny Scoopmeister Rimmer. That's what they.
Yeah. That's what I heard. That's what I heard on the circuit.
Yeah, that's the word on the street. I've gotten, obviously journalism is my career, but I do try to cover hip hop wherever I can, and I found recently actually less and less time to be able to do so. But we're still running. Not as good as your podcast, obviously, Tom, but the Scotland Stand Up podcast for fans of Scottish hip hop. We sort of rant and play tunes on there, and that's running again on a regular-ish basis. So I'm still getting my kind of fix for ranting about hip and all the rest of it. So and obviously it's great to be back on here.
Yeah, great to have you on. As I say, people can go check out the previous episode where we went deep on Falling Down. And just before we get to today's episode, please follow this show if you enjoy the show. Subscribe to us at Battle Rap Resume on Twitter. We've got the Patreon as well, where you can donate if you feel so obliged. iTunes if you want to leave us a review. Yeah, we sort of did our introductions, really, how we got into the band on the last episode. But before we get into today's album, in a few words, what does Jehst mean to you?
Oh man, what does he mean to me? Jesus,
a few words is hard. I appreciate.
I'd say he's the one dude I geek out over in terms of his writing more than any other sort of MC I can think of. I mean, he's the one person that I, absolutely stan in terms of. I feel like I'm more enthusiastic with Jehst just because of his status among purists and people that know UK hip hop and know the history of it. Obviously, we all recognise his achievements and praise him highly, but I suppose in the wider sort of mainstream, I think his stuff's really, really overlooked. I saw a list last year actually that I did a complete rebuttal to in terms of my favourite UK hip hop records, and their ones, they had the greatest UK hip hop artists, and I think Jehst was he was in there, but he was pretty low, and he was among people like guys like So Solid Crew and stuff. And I was just like, God, this guy's like a godlike genius when it comes to this sort of shit, and just a bit of lip service, that's not enough. You need to be really sort of doing your homework and checking this guy out, and also the guys he's worked with. And I feel like every single album he's put out has been, I said this on the last one we did, has been highly conceptual. He never puts anything out unless it's a proper full artistic work where he's really going into proper themes and he's got a lot to say. He never puts out like throwaway tracks or with just half-assed bars from freestyles and stuff. Everything he puts out is immaculate. So I'd say what he means to me is he's the best, man. He's the best on these islands anyway, by my reckoning.
Yeah, I completely agree. Quite obviously, because we, have a show about him on here. I idolise the guy as well. And Battle Rap Resume, it's heart. He's about writing. That's ultimately what I'm really, really interested in. And he is one of those guys, really. And I think making these notes, going for this album especially, which I think I like it more than Falling Down. I think I do. I don't know if I like it more than Return of the Drifter. I think we'll grapple with that as we go through. A lot of tracks as well. 16 songs on here with no guest verses, I should say. There's a few guest vocals and samples and stuff from other things, but there's no one else spitting on here. And that was one of the problems of Falling Down. I think there were quite some weak supplementary material. But just before we get into the songs themselves, this album was released obviously on Y&R Productions on the 19th of June 2011. We are being a little cheeky in our chronology here because technically we should have been looking at 2005's Nuke Proof Suit, but I wanted to talk about this album more, and I don't really like Nuke Proof Suit. We'll get back to Nuke Proof Suit maybe on some sort of...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't find it as lyrically interesting. I thought sonically it was a little bass, but, again, we can cover that on a future Patreon episode for all the willing subscribers. But Jehst John... he described the title of the album, which is called, as I say, The Dragon of an Ordinary Family, as, quote, the juxtaposition of dragon with ordinary family. You've got references to everyday mundane shit that everyone can relate to, but at the same time there's something otherworldly about it, and something that's kind of fantastical and people can't quite put their finger on. It's that mixture of the everyday with the surreal. Is that a fair summation for you of this album?
Yeah. I think that was a point I was probably going to bring up. That sort of the surreal stuff and the kind of more observational sort of shit. I think this is. I mean, I know you said I think this is your second favorite. I did initially say that this was probably slightly below Falling Down for me, but that's just because I think that's a taste thing for me and what I like from Jehst in terms of his style of beats and his style of flow and all the rest of it. I feel on this one, for reasons I will get into, I think he switches things up and he's a bit more experimental on this one. But I don't know, now when re-listening to this, I'm not sure it's not a worse record. It's just as good a record, if anything. I mean, I put Return of the Drift on a pedestal, but I think the rest of his albums are all superb. And I think I think in terms of what marks this one out, I suppose, is the kind of the emphasis on songwriting and the emphasis on. I think it's the first album where I can really hear a real deliberation on how his vocals are used, how they really fit in everything around him, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like whereas the first two albums, there was real sort of technical displays of skill on sort of every single track almost. I feel like he's less concise. So yeah, I think that the description he comes out with a fair summation, I'd say.
We begin with True Intention.
The rent slate. I see a few of these dudes are dead weight. The leader in need of headspace. I blaze the pen grade, the pen stays poised. My ink flow poison to keep me employed.
I think it's the perfect opener in so many ways. I think it's signalling a change, especially in the musical preoccupations. We have the deep thrumming pulse, those soft dilating arpeggios purring. Electronic music figures heavily in the entire record, right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned briefly there, like the kind of the pulsing synths on this sort of track and that kind of the title kind of sums it up. It's sort of setting out a stall for the record. I mean, one thing I noticed on this as well, and this is straight off the bat, is how muffled his voice kind of sounds in the mix on this. It kind of adds that kind of foreboding kind of tone that it has. And I talked on the last pod about kind of Jehst's frustrations with modern society and all the rest of it, and how that's a recurrent theme throughout his albums. I feel like this kind of addresses it a bit more brazenly. I mean, he even ends the track with a reference to OK Computer, which is the most obvious manifestation of that sentiment in album form, obviously. And he seems quite sort of, I don't know, quite paranoid and frustrated off the bat here. He's kind of like, I trust no one except my family ties, talking about snakes in the grass and stuff. And it's telling that he's not really good. This was 2011, so I don't know what that was since his last project, but he didn't become complacent with age here. He's kind of angry and political, if anything. He's talking about Columbine and kids getting shot in Hackney and stuff. So yeah, no, it's it's straight off the bat. It's quite an experimental sort of electronic sort of way to start. That's a bit unexpected if you've listened to his previous stuff. And he's not sort of jumping in straight away, all guns blazing with the sort of I'm back and I'm the best. It's it's more he's starting with stuff's a bit fucked up, and I've got issues, and so it's an interesting way to begin the album, and it becomes obvious why as it goes on.
Yeah, thematically it's quite seamless, I think, from say something like China Shop Taurus, despairing at the bleakness and pointing it out in just the artistic way that Jehst can, moving from the micro to the macro. Everyone wants an MTV crib, trying to find out where the WMDs hit. You've got to chill like EPMD did. Wifey's wiling out on some PMT shit. He's always taking the line a little further than you anticipate, in a much cleverer way than you would have conjured.
Yeah, I think there's he always seems to have these Orwellian kind of references, and he mentions Iraq, and he talks about. He's very sort of, as you say, macro reference game is crazy. He can kind of seamlessly go between the sort of the stuff that's really sort of look at everything that's going on, look at everything that's going around you. I suppose it's kind of I know it seems like when this album came out, it kind of London riot sort of time. I think it was post-economic crash, and kind of everything was a little bit sort of unsettled. But it also keep. I mean, some of it seems quite prophetic considering the way stuff's gone since. But I think his frustrations are very sort of. He ties them back to stuff that is pissing him off on an everyday level. But then he's just like, but this is also me venting about everything. Do you know what I mean? And everything that's going out, and I do like that he mixes the personal and the political very, very well.
Yeah, and as you say, his reference game is out of control, and I love pouring through these verses. Unfortunately, unlike, say, a Kendrick Lamar, they're not really furnished by genius, so a lot of them you have to research yourself. For instance, he makes reference to white boys blacking up, modern Al Jolson, which to me, I was like, who is that? I wasn't sure. He was an American comedian who was dubbed in the sort of early 20th century as the world's greatest entertainer, and he was known for performing in blackface. So, that is just him kind of reaching out there and actually doing research. Okay. Yeah, so I wasn't aware of that. And when he mentions the long grass as well, he mentions Lawnmower Man, and there's just lots of, almost battle-y bars, almost something you can imagine Luna C saying, double jointed, blazing two zoots at a time.
Yeah, it's weird how he's like. It's almost like if Luna C met like low key, do you know what I mean, on a track. If they were clapping, but it's like him just on one sort of extended verse almost. I think this is just one verse, isn't it?
Yes, pretty much. Well.
Yeah. He's sort of putting it all on blast, and. As you say, he's going from that sort of, he's kind of implying straight away a few Weed references, more so than even other records. Mm-hmm. And he's projecting this kind of paranoid character, but then he's also like relating it from the personal. But then also, like every time a politician wants to big up his chest, it's all economics. The arms trade generates dollars, and dictators don't educate scholars, which is a line I really, really like. But like, it is almost as much as he genuinely believes a lot of that stuff, and I relate to exactly what he's saying. I think there's almost a sense of self-awareness to it as well, that kind of there's points on this record where when he is talking about all this sort of stuff that's going on, he is kind of like not mocking himself, but some of it seems a little bit tongue-in-cheek, especially as he's going on about sort of b-boys cracking up, this can't be my beautiful culture and all this sort of stuff. He's very a lot of it seems just slightly laced with irony, and I feel like he is kind of he's jabbing at people, but he's not doing so in a sort of, as much as I love Low-Key or Akala and these sort of he's not doing it in an aggressively sort of, this is me on my soapbox, I'm pointing these guys out. He is sort of kind of bringing it back and saying, no, but shit, this is just, I'm smoking and whatever,
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, there was an interview with him a little while ago, and I think the journalist described him as being permanently partially stoned. And he does have that sort of element to him, that sort of wry eye, looking askance at things. And yeah, I know what you're saying. Like this song especially, and other songs like England and Killer Instinct, that is kind of straight out the Akala textbook. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Jehst is always doing a bit more. He's always just got a bit more poetic license when he's moving around there. And he talks about the white soldiers in Fallujah, controlled by remote viewer, and it's just very elegant. But I love the fact that the song begins with a clip from Walk the Line. And it's basically the scene when Sam Phillips stops Johnny Cash on his audition and says,
"Oh,
to,
right,
you know,
yeah,
of
course, yeah." I've not probably seen that film, but I do know the reference now. You mentioned.
Yeah. So he's basically saying, what is the one song you would play if you were hit by a truck and lying in the gutter? One song that would sum you up. And I suppose to a certain extent, True Intention is a kind of state of the union for Jehst. It's a way to get to grips with who he is as a rapper. Maybe if you haven't heard a record of his before.
Yeah, I think it's almost as if, I mean, Jehst, it's not his the most accessible track up to start an album compared to Liquor Soaked Sentiments or High Plains, which really grip you in with these sort of musical flows and a real catchy beat. But I feel like on this one he's just like setting out his stall, and he's just like, this is what you're going to get for so many minutes. But it's also kind of, some of the tracks he's really sort of, it's swaggy Jehst, as we put it, him saying I'm the best. But on this one he kind of does it without needing to say that too much. He's basically just like, just the way he puts stuff together, and kind of it's very eloquent, it's very self-aware, and it's almost just showing it's like an introduction to, like, look how much I've grown as an artist. I'm not just talking about any kind of bullshit here. This is stuff that means something. And it's a terrific track, and we can pore over the lyrics endlessly. There are so many great sequences, as you say. You talk about the Orwellian state, got schoolboys peddling weight, pop pop, leave you dead in your gates. It's the same throughout many estates, and again it's pulling out to a rack selling firearms on the next line, and it is seamless, these stream of consciousness that he parades on. And Killer Instinct is kind of more of the same, this second track.
Guzzled in the potion, drowning my sorrow. We're gonna be sober tomorrow, but I'm still holding the bottle. Wadded in my step, wind swept, flat air bubbled in my crep.
Opening up the pulled back simps, the scratches, and something that happens commonly in a lot of these songs, where you'll have a lighter section, like the keyboard spelling out a sort of higher register, and then sort of a Neanderthal bass, a dung doo doo dung, like it's very clunky, but it works very well to reinforce what he's going for.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I've not written too much about this because, as you say, it kind of does follow on from the first track nicely in terms of thematically. I do like. I think the writing on this one is really, really, really
it's amazing,
good, actually. I mean, we talked about his choice of words before. I mean, he always makes things sound sick in a really kind of unexpected way, like, I mean, I'm just pouring through it now, but a wee example, corporate endorsing, depleted endorphin supply, wiping the tear from my eye, the sky's the limit, but I'm fearful to fly, an ear full of hype, head full of doubts, lung full of tie, now my head's in the clouds, all this sort of stuff. It's really like...
Lung full of tie is a great way to say that you smoke weed. That's a great way to say it.
It's breathless, but it's the way he puts these things across. The flows aren't sort of ultra drawn out, but the patterns he's using here are kind of like, each kind of line is this little sort of like a really sort of clear. It almost seems kind of postmodern, but it's this really sort of carefully selected kind of image where every single line hits, and it's very meticulously chosen. Do you know what I mean? It's not like he's not waffling on. That's one of the best thing about Jehst is every single word counts, and like every single line here, I feel like there's an image or there's something that's got some double meaning to it, or it just sounds cool as hell. Do you know what I mean? I think that as a style of writing, I think this track really stands out for me, just in the way he puts things across. Yeah.
There's some wonderful sections. I love the intro, just the portrait that he paints. Doctor told me to double up the dosage, muddled up in a bundle of emotion, insignificant, a puddle in an ocean.
Yeah, guzzle in the potion.
Potion, yeah. And probably my favourite section is waddle in my step, windswept, flat air bubble in my crep. Like, who thinks of that?
Yeah, it's we were saying this on the last one as well. Maybe that seems meta. I don't know. But everyone should listen to that one before they listen to this one.
It's got no views, so people please do.
So people can go like, well, this is the thing. I suppose the people who are going to relate to these podcasts and the Jehst podcast are going to be Jehst stands like us, who
it's niche,
pouring over his stuff in a similar way. So we do understand that. It's a bit niche, but I mean, come on, guys, like, you've got to listen to. I mean, just the way he puts things, like, and just the shit he rhymes, man. Super tramp, trampy, vagrant, see me passed out, face down on the pavement. Like, it's just there's a playfulness to it that's like, and yeah, when he goes down, how the check bounced on the pavement, tears of a clown. Now that's entertainment, like that. There's something that's just it's very very fluid, but he's always sort of darting around. It's almost as if the way I can only put it across is that like I feel like Jehst, the way he thinks is he's got like in his brain like it's almost like a menu of sort of things he can choose from and sort of categories that he can sort of delve into, and he's like, oh, I'm just going to go, this is a bleak, I'm just going to touch out for that, but then somehow it all fits and it's still all chronological and it's still all sort of seamless, as you say. We keep saying that bloody word, seamless. That's the way. That's the only way I can describe it.
No. It's a patchwork. It's a tapestry. There is nothing wasted. There is no filler. It's just so interesting, and he really cuts through the sounds as well. Like I think on this record, there's a very sort of smoky, ethereal, dusty thing, but Jehst never subsides to that. You know, he never seems too high. He never seems to languish. And you know, he says something quite poignant that I think a lot of us can relate to at the start of the second. See me getting lean off. Why ain't I achieving everything I dreamed of? And that in itself is the intoxicant, you know, which is just really really deep. And I guess you know, just saying it's not necessarily musically the most memorable. It does sort of tap into the first track there, you know, the true intention. And I was saying to you just for when on air, for me, I don't know how other people listen to this about this album, I think this album's very much it's got a golden middle. I think there's sort of a section of, you know, it's sort of from the fourth track onwards, Thinking Crazy. I think the next 7 or 8 tracks are just unbelievable for me. Zombies, the third song, again is fine.
You can hear the echoes resonating through the rave, making sound waves transform and translate universal in your boombox every day. That Parky and Tiffany page, I flip the script to a different page.
I'm gonna welcome any fucking Jehst song. I love the fact that he referenced China Shop Taurus in this as well, and there's lots of nods throughout here where Jehst is sort of calling back to things, and as you say, the stands, the people that are aware of this oeuvre of him. What are your thoughts on Zombies as a whole?
I'd say it's one of my favourite beats on the album. It's got the horns, the
it reminds
me
of the skit, the instrumental from Return of the Drifter, the second track.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same sort of DNA.
That, yeah. I suppose the one difference between that, I suppose, is that original one. It's kind of it fits in with that first record just because of the kind of the big bassy piano it goes in. Into. I suppose this one, fits this one just because it's that little bit more psychedelic as well. I suppose I mean, there's something humorous, almost nostalgic about it, but it also kind of fits in with the drama. I suppose. I don't know if he is sampling old sort of horror B movies or something. Because it's one of those beats. It's like it doesn't sound scary, but you can hear that there's something from it that's taken from like there's something about it that's quite enjoyable and quite sort of B-movie about it.
Definitely.
And again, the reference game on this one's insane too, like the Ali G, Kimbo Slice, Neil Buchanan.
I know. Neil Buchanan is a fire reference.
Yeah. He's just got such a rich kind of cultural tapestry to work from.
God.
He uses
really
them fluidly.
Yeah. He mentions Baron Greenbacks, which I was like, what the hell is that? And it's just showing my age here. I wasn't aware. Apparently, the arch enemy of Danger Mouse.
Oh yeah, I used to watch Danger Mouse, man. That used to be on. Was it Boomerang? I don't know if you had that.
I was more of a Nickelodeon kid, John. But yeah, I respect that.
Yeah. No, I watched that a lot. I used to watch it a wee bit. I mean, I was.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Nickelodeon, though. I mean, do you ever watch Renford Rejects? That was the show.
Renford Rejects. I remember Renford Rejects. That's such an obscure pull with the Manic Street Preachers theme tune.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's what I used to watch if I got home from school early. So it's basically when I went to primary school, there's some schools in Livingston and West. Well, that's where I grew up in, and West Lothian as a whole, like in the Central Belt, where like you would get Friday afternoon off every week. I don't know why we did this, but like most kids' schools, you know, it's like a full day thing. But yeah, so I used to come home early and watch Renford Rejects and all these kind of shows. So. I mean, yeah, I'm going on a fucking tangent there. But
in true Jehst vein, I think.
Well, yeah, but I just feel like I like that Jehst has his reference to kids' TV shows. I feel like if I had to put out an album, I'd probably be like referencing Renford.
I'm a reject like Renford. It's like, damn.
Yeah, but
I love that.
Apparently, also Leaf Dog did a remix of this track, which I've not heard, but I don't know.
Yeah, there is. there is a remix album, which is on Spotify. I listened to a little bit. Some of the remixes are brilliant, I have to say.
Oh, is it on that? Yeah, I've heard a couple of them, actually.
Yeah. There's some old Number 7, which I think altogether is a good song anyway. I think the remix is fantastic. But, I like Zombies. I think sometimes the hooks in this can be a little bit, I don't know, a little bit formulaic, a little bit going, whoa, why? Smashing a set, my flow, duh. I don't know, it's just, it doesn't really have the blood that the verses have.
I know what you mean, but I like how it is kind of like, I suppose it kind of relates back to the, when he's talking about the sort of childlike perspective he's trying to go from at some point. So, attack of the killer rap zombies, kind of like silly sort of side of it. I can dig that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I like the beat. I suppose it's not as opposed to Killer Instinct, where I suppose the verses stand out more for me, but less the beat. I suppose this one's more the opposite. I suppose it's not my favourite track, but the I think Zygote produced this one. It's a good beat.
And I mean, talking of good beats and great songs altogether, we get to Thinking Crazy. They say I'm cashing checks and I'll be pushing the bimmer next. I got a pushback, blood. I push a BMX. See if you see me vex. That's because my money's short. There's not enough notes on this check. I need a couple more. Which is a song that I am absolutely mad for, really. I think on one level it's just a triumphant Jehst fuck you sort of track, but on another level it's incredibly refreshing to hear someone be so honest about how on the breadline, how desperate they are and where they go with it. I mean, what do you make of Thinking Crazy?
Oh mate, as a journalist, I relate to this heavy because God, what am I doing in this industry? If you want money, don't don't become a journalist. You'll be working loads for very little. But yeah, no, I think I like this one. It's this kind of like big classic 90s throwback sort of thing that is it's just in terms of production and sort of the flow. It reminds me of like an old Gangstar track or something,
definitely,
like Militia or something. I don't know why that popped into my head.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it?
But it's the flow's a bit kind of more measured. It's not sort of so like it's not so rushed kind of thing.
No.
He's giving time to stuff to breathe a little bit. I really like the hook is great. It is that kind of
the hook's better. Yeah. And like Thinking Crazy is repeated I think 8 times in the hook. Like,
yeah, I think. I mean, I don't always like hooks like that, but I think on this one it works. I feel like he's kind of. He talks a little bit about turning to extreme measures on this track to kind of deal with his situation, which, again, we'll touch on that more. But I suppose on this album, I feel like there are more moments on this album where it seems like he's at breaking point compared to he's frustrated on the first couple of hours. I feel like at this one, he gets a bit more personal and a bit sort of, bit more fed up. It's not. The beat and stuff, it's not dark and minimalist by any means, and the track's kind of full of colour and his voice is full of character, and it's it's really tailored for a live audience, one that they can participate in, but it's still like when you break down the lines on it, it's he starts referencing banks and he's like, it's all the same to me. Yeah, I know I'm a novice, but anyone can pull a toaster in the post office, and he starts really going into sort of it's humorous to an extent, but he starts off saying the rent's overdue, and he ends with sort of, shit, do I need to rob some people? Like, what how am I gonna do
he goes to prison in the end. He's caught. And the beat is bum 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 ba-da-da-da-bum. Like it's crazy. And I just think, what an opening. What am I gonna do? The rent is overdue. Like, if you just heard the instrumental, you think it was he's talking about his swag and his bitches, but actually it's just the pure economics of being a musician in 2011.
Yeah, this is shit I relate to. I mean, as well, I was talking about being a journalist. I suppose anything that's kind of creative industries or media or anything like that, or art in particular.
Podcasting.
I suppose podcasting, man. Yeah, you've got. I mean, the thing is with art and kind of our attitudes to culture, I suppose under the sort of, God, I'm getting political again, but under the sort of hyper kind of capitalist system we live in, the way that people kind of treat art, and this is, I think, why a lot of artists make their best music early in their career, is because they kind of they're the most creative when they sort of have time to dwell on stuff and come and have stuff come out fresh and put it out and be like, wow, who are these guys, whatever it is. And as soon as you're kind of in this contractual basis, you need to live, you need to eat, you need to put stuff out, and your labels and whoever and your fans, and it's all about supply and demand. And suddenly, you know, there's this huge sort of weight put down on you that you have to get something out in 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And so I suppose Jehst probably, his album came out, a good 8 years after his last full LP, or 5, 6 years after Nuke Proof Suit. And I feel like one of the reasons that Jehst has maintained the quality to some extent is he has never pandered too much to that, which is probably, you know, it's no wonder if he's now, but, you know, he's kind of, you know, that is going to be a source of frustration. That is going to be something that's going to get you down, and it is going to make. And I suppose what I like about this is it's not about self-pity for him. He's expressing all this sort of stuff that he's frustrated with, but he's not moaning about it. He's sort of taking the piss a little bit and saying, listen, shit is fucked. I've really got my rent's overdue. Everyone's going, I'm going to get robbed and I'm going to get arrested. Do you know what I mean? And I just love the narrative of that. I love the sort of kind of transition between those ideas that's what the track's going to be about. I like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's just that dissonance between the beat itself and the message, the subversion. You know, as you say, he is self-actualizing here. He's realizing, you know, my money's short. There's not enough noughts on this check. I need a couple more, which I love. I've got a push bike. I push a BMX. You know, people assuming how well off he is and that being so incorrect. And yet the final, when he sort of, you know, pulls out the long straps, it reminds me a little bit of Fast Money by Big Pun, which ends with them all getting their guns and going to rob this bank. And, you know, you hear the sounds of sort of, you know, bullets being loaded, etc. And, you know, ultimately you can't blame his decision when he gets the money to go out and have some fun, you know, go to some West End bars. We learn the notes have been traced. He's surrounded. And ultimately you can't blame this figure. It's not glorifying the crime. It's just, you know, describing the situation that formed it.
It's kind of almost, almost serves as a defense of a lot of hip hop, which maybe is a reflection more of real stuff that's happened. Because I'm not suggesting Jehst has actually been out there robbing banks, but
no,
when you think about where hip hop comes from and where a lot of MCs, the shit they've gone through, I suppose, and, you know, the way it's kind of satirized and criticized by some in the media is, you know, the hip hop is all they're glamorizing this and that. But a lot of rappers, it's, you know, it was real life and it was shit they did to get by because of where they were from and dealing with an unequal economy and all the rest of it. And I feel like Jehst, it's kind of almost like his artsy kind of defense of that, saying, well, this is how it's built up. I don't give a, you know, this stuff's all these banks are the same. It's all faceless. This is, you know, I feel like his character in this is not the villain in the piece, as it were, even though he's the one getting balaclavaed up and all the rest of it. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm going a wee bit deep on that, but I think that's
what you're here for, man.
Track.
But yeah, and then it ends with sort of a sample. Jehst, I'm not joking, you know, and he's sort of playing the word just as Jehst, I'm not joking, pointing it out that, you know, almost confirming to the listener here that there is some verisimilitude perhaps. But as I say before, I just love the honesty, and this goes throughout this album. Like, often he'd speak about his existential paucity, but here he's just getting down to the, you know, brass tacks effectively. And I don't think I've heard many rappers really talk about how poor they are and how they're struggling for money. So that's one of the themes that I really like. And another theme that we get into, which the song ends with a small discussion between two older men talking about the idea of free speech. You can choose what football team you like or what shit tabloid you buy, but, you know, if you actually had free speech, they crack down on it. So theoretically, you know, practicing it, you don't have it anymore, which lead us into England.
The gloves are off, bare knuckles for the last round. Listen to the war drum, hear how my heart sound. Fist pound the asphalt as the living dead inhale the crack smoke. Squeeze blood out of stone just to make cash flow. Streets retarded, the daily news is too much for the weak heart.
I always read that as an intro to England rather than a coda to Thinking Crazy. I don't know about you.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think free speech in the context of hip hop. I mean, if you want to hear me ranting about that, you should check out the last podcast I did. But I think I think people have this idea that free speech is this this open terrain where you can say what you want. But, you know, you can say what you want with free speech, but you have, you know, people have the free speech to call you out on it as well. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like, and he tackles a little bit of this in England, but I suppose you end up with this really crazy system where the free speech that gets defended more often than not in our society is often the most extreme racist views, and like, oh, they have the right to say this, or they have the right to have a go at whoever. And England kind of touches on that a little bit about this. It's quite dystopian and fucked up, but you know, there's a real kind of urgency to it, and I feel like, I think that's something you can tell that frustrates Jehst a little bit. That everything seems to be a little bit backwards in our society, and what our values are, and how what we're happy to sort of vent about, but what's considered over the line, and sort of the hypocrisies of our governments and all the rest of it.
He says, England as a whole, you may have heard England if maybe you haven't heard the album. I think it was one of the breakout tracks here. It again is Jehst sort of doing a summation really of what he sees around him, and it's very depressing. It's incredibly well written, and it's quite, it's got a downtrodden sort of element to it. What do you make of the song as a whole? Because there's just, lyrically just so much packed into England, probably more than any other track on the album, I'd say. Yeah,
it's a really superb track. I think one of his best ones. I think, and obviously most Jehst fans will know it. It does have that real kind of Mobb Deep kind of vibe, doesn't it, with the piano loop and the big drums. But I think the vocals really contribute to it as well, because again, he sounds kind of muffled and kind of disembodied, and as I say, the delivery adds a real sort of urgency to it. And the fact that there's no real kind of hook, it's just like, and another thing, and another thing. It's kind of that stream of consciousness thing again, but like, as he's running through everything, but it's also very tightly put together. Because I think the way he touches on the UK's bloody history, he puts things into wider context, and relates to his own personal experiences as well, and stuff he's seen that's not, he says that shit's backwards and all the rest of it. And again, he's kind of reinforcing the album's sort of paranoid tone again, because he's saying that, they can't trap me because of my Oyster card, and he's attacking the media and the politicians. He's looking at it from all angles, and it's kind of like he's kind of reinforcing that kind of apathy as well. At the same time, you can tell he's not entirely in that. He's read up on all these things, and he's political agents. He says, I'm angry. He can identify what the problems are, but he's got very little faith in the solutions, which is what's made him so bitter, which I think is a really interesting way of coming at it.
And Jean-Charles de Menezes, I hope I'm saying that correctly, gets his first proper reference here. He's referenced a few times. We also have a reference to the girl that was abducted and killed in Catford, which is something that I wasn't aware of, but there's, I was reading up on that as well. So as you say, it's building a really interesting portrait here, and not even on that level, just on the sort of the brutish modern level, the 24-hour drinking, and I like when the cadence switches, where it's kind of this, stream of consciousness. You have to sort of say with Jehst, so I apologise for repeating that term, but when it's more imperative, the liquor is here, the drugs are here, the football thugs are here. You can get mugged in here.
He really he adds a bit. There's a bit of venom to this one as well. Like there's a subtle aggression to it that's really kind of. Again, I talked about the riots earlier, but it seemed prophetic of a lot of the stuff that went on in that. At that time in particular, but now you've seen it, sort of expressed politically now, and I feel like, again, I'm getting political here, but I suppose like in the way the country's gone since then, I suppose, in terms of, there are sort of alternatives, and now people have started to, people voted for people like Jeremy Corbyn, and we had the independence vote and stuff. It's not all that people were angry and started all voting racists and all the rest of it, but there was that element to it for a while. I feel like Jehst touches on, I suppose, he talks about race hate growing, so they're voting for BNP at the time, now more UKIP or whatever, and I suppose there was that element that, when what's backwards about this country is that what he gets angry about is where everything that's going on, it just makes people turn on each other. And he's saying how our institutions and the way that England and the UK is run, the Church of England invested in the slave trade, and talking about the banks and politicians, he's sending the toxic Avenger and stuff. I think he's got a real sense that the whole thing and every institution and the way the whole state is kind of the apparatus of it, the way everything works, for him is just backwards. He thinks all it does is creates the conditions where hate can thrive, which is a very sort of miserable and negative sort of vision, but I think that's what he genuinely thinks, and I can sympathise with that to some extent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you said earlier how this marked a step forward in terms of composition. There's a bit more sophistication here, and one of the things I love about England is that sonically it's quite monotonal, and then just when there's a little bit of hope, there's a beat change where he says right at the end, and I've still got love for the place where I'm living, but right now there ain't nothing great about Britain. It's odd, isn't it? It's like a little shaft of light, and then it closes back down.
Yeah, that little, it kind of almost switches to a major key and then goes. And I've still got love for the place I'm living, but right now there's not that much great about Britain, really. Yeah. Which is the perfect way to end it, really, because, I suppose that is the great irony, is if you're somebody who isn't particularly fond of the country where you're living because nothing's really working, and you feel like you're marginalised and all the rest of it, you're not gonna. I suppose that's the thing is you're kind of encouraged to be patriotic and love your country, because that in a way is the way of kind of appealing to the masses when things are shit. It's just like, oh well, just think of your country. And I think it's his kind of declaration of intent at the end is like, well, there isn't nothing great about Britain. Why would I feel passionate about being English or British right now? Because of all the reasons I've just stated. Do you know what I mean? So it's the perfect summary. It's for him, that's the great irony. And
yes.
Yeah, it's good.
It's very, very good. The Huddersfield of Dreams. He's harking back. Obviously, Jehst is from Huddersfield. Check out early Jehsticulations episodes where we discuss sort of more of his back history. And
I find it
stuff like
so weird because he's got such a London accent.
Yeah,
you would never know. Yeah,
it's odd. Now we get into another side of Jehst on the next song, Camberwell Carrots.
Ain't nothing pretty in this city for real, but we can put our heads together if you're willing to build. I see a vision of Elysian Fields, another day in the life of Mr. William Shields. We slum villagers drunk off of miniatures.
Which were you aware what a Camberwell Carrot was, John?
I knew it was a carrot.
Yeah, it's not. It's actually not a carrot. No, it's a reference to With Nail and I, sort of the cult, UK film, brilliant film from the 80s, and basically it's a joint. It's a joint made up of 12 papers that's about 18 inches long, and they smoke it in the film, filmed with pure weed. So yeah, Camberwell Carrots, which is one of those things where I'd heard this album, then I watched the film afterwards, and then coming back, I was like, oh, Jehst, you with your references. And this is...
I think I have seen the film a long time ago.
Yeah, it's one of those mandatory student watches.
I never analysed the title, I just assumed it was some... Because he says he can see in the dark.
See in the dark, But I mean, inevitably, there is some sort of marijuana supposition there. And this is... No, it's fortunately not, no. But this is, reminds me a little bit of ESP from Falling Down. This is Jehst in his, his ethereal realm, in the dark, speaking into the abyss, into the ether. What do you think of this song?
Well, man, if you eat those vegetables, they're like psychedelics. They can do crazy things. No, I do I think this isn't one that hooked me when I first listened to the album, but I suppose the more I've listened to it and kind of embraced what the different sides to Jehst and what he's about, it's grown on me a lot. I think the transition from England's really interesting because it's kind of like it's so lo-fi and kind of out of character compared to his previous kind of production, and he's kind of continuing the theme of England in that he's saying, fuck the ministers and the crumbs that they're giving us, but he's more reflective about it. It's a bit less urgent. It's almost kind of like after the sort of the storm of of England and how pissed off he is with everything, he's saying, well, listen, I am really angry, but like I can reflect on it as well. I don't know. I think also just the Groundhog Day and the kind of Trivial Pursuit references. It's almost like the stages of grief.
Yeah,
because he's kind of the way he comments on it. It's the futility of stuff. He's now a bit more lethargic and down, and it's really beautifully written. It's kind of beautifully conveyed, but. The reason I say stages of grief is it sounds like he's trying to reassure himself a bit, where he's like, I'm the shining star, and whatever happens, I'm going to keep going. and I'm not going to give up despite all these pressures and the societal stuff, and even though I'm skint, as we were saying before, and all this sort of stuff. It's almost like he's reinforcing his resilience, do you know what I mean, and kind of challenging himself toward, especially in that chorus. So I think it's a good follow-up.
Yeah, there is hope. You know, he's talking about putting our heads together if you're willing to build, but you soon learn that it's like an Albion, you know, like a mystical idea. I see a vision of Elysian fields, and to multi that with William Shields, his alter
name
ego is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, there's lots of references. We had China Shop Tourist before. I'm pretty sure this is a reference to 1979, the classic Jehst song, where he says in this song, "Living on the edge, ready to fall down again, and this time I might not pick myself back up, dust myself down." And then in 1979 he says, I don't need to spell it out. I tripped and fell down and picked myself up, turned myself round. And then I think this was the couplet that made me fall in love with Jehst, where he says, "From the cliff edge and staggered home like a misled pisshead and put up a fight to my fist spread." Which is just, oh my god,
that the musicality of that is just that's one of the things that really hooked me about Jehst as well. But it is thematically consistent, but also I love the little throwback rhymes to some of his older stuff. That's dope.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think this is a wonderful track. I think especially musically as well, we have those deep scoop drums. The voice is slightly panning out the left. There's like a second Jehst voice beneath the first one, which gives it this duplicitous quality. I think a song like Camberwell Carrots, if you understand the reference, which is just about getting fucking high, really painfully high, and to that point where, you're not just playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, you're going into your inner cerebellum. It's very fitting sonically. Yeah,
and also I think it's a chorus. There's two choruses in this, but just the one kind of verse that's kind of extended, and it's not. It feels. It's not an interlude because it's too long to be an interlude, I suppose. But it's one of those tracks that's. It's not trying to seize your attention and be the standout singer or anything. But I think the fact that he used to play this one live quite a bit as well, I think. So there's obviously a bit of affection that he, even though it's a bit more sort of meditative and kind of laid back, there's something about it that is quite sort of deep and meaningful, and obviously means a bit to him. So there's that aspect of it too.
It's a terrific song. Not too much to say on this because it's just like a sort of a Jehst verse that is wonderful in of itself. I think Starting Over is new ground for him.
Starting over, in the bathroom, walls are molding, single glazing, less the colding, cause the paper that I'm folding is like wet tissue.
Again, it has that lumbering, blundering bass that I harked back to earlier, which I like the fact that it's given time in this song. This is a 3-minute song, Starting Over, and the first third is just that bass. There's some harmonica that has time to establish itself too in the eaves. There's a reverse guitar carving out some territory. The xylophone doubling up. Just talking musically, how is Starting Over for you?
Yeah, I love the beat on this. I really, really do. It sounds like nothing else that he's really done. I mean, there's a few sort of touchstones on this album that are similar to it, I suppose, but this in particular has a real kind of old school sci-fi vibe to it, kind of woozy synths and obviously, I think it was a xylophone you were saying.
Yeah.
That kind of melody to it, it's just a really, really great progression. I suppose it fits the video as well when he's a postman, isn't he?
Yes.
His marketing campaign for it is that I'm actually, Jehst is actually my postman. And people are like, is he actually? Well, it was clearly a music video.
Sure.
but he suits being postman actually. I thought he seemed quite in his element.
Yeah.
But it kind of it does have that kind of walking. You can kind of cut about and listen to this song when you're walking about and be like, there's something about it. It's got this real kinetic movement to it that I really like, and I love how he kind of. Again, it does sort of. We're talking about reinforcing resilience. I suppose on this one he is literally starting over.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like he's back on his kind of. He starts off sort of again in that kind of low point where he's. His flow and cadence he mixes up a bit. It's that duality of I'm this and I'm that. I'm a wasteman. I'm a loner. I'm a spaceman. I'm a stoner. And I think as much as I said, I like Return of the Drifter is my favourite, and I loved falling down the structured rhymes and the musicality of it. I do think the approach on these tracks suits the songwriting a bit better. He is more of a songwriter on this one, as you're saying. He comes in a bit later. He allows the track space to breathe, and his flow isn't like that predictable sort of Jehst style. It's a bit more sort of rhetorical, and it's a bit more kind of I'm this, I'm that, I'm this to everybody, and he's asking questions, and it's almost as if he's working through some shit on the track. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's almost as if he comes in a bit late because he's still trying to work it out. So yeah, no, I really dig this one.
Yeah, I agree. I love this one as well. It's just sort of one straight verse pulling this out, but there's a lot of sort of I'm that, as you say. There's lots of sort of the duality of his personality that he's always been wrestling with, and it's really compelling to see. You know, it's what makes the best characters in drama, really. People who are conflicted internally. You don't want to just see someone who just has a monomaniacal side there. He's a mascot for the blunted, he calls himself, which I really like. He talks about his nuke proof that he's done. Yeah, he is. He definitely is. He should be on the city boy / country bumpkin. And yeah, there's something so inelegant about the beat and what he's saying that the whole package to me is so successful.
Yeah, he just sounds so sort of like unpredictable on this one. It's just like, he just sounds like the way he starts it as well. When he comes in, he almost sounds like, I was talking about tongue in cheek earlier, but just like, considering what comes after this as well, like we'll get onto, but I'm a waste man, I'm a loner, I'm a spaceman, I'm a stoner. He kind of just like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm really shit. But then he's also, I'm a brave man, I'm a soldier. He's going through these things and kind of saying, I'm everything to everyone, and I've got my issues, but like no more than anyone, and I've got my. I've got the shit that I'm good at. I know that again, this is another thing, being talented and using creativity in spite of it all. And yeah, I do love that line, I'm a mascot for the blunted, because he's kind of evidence that being into all that sort of shit, you can be super creative and super smart with it as well. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't render you useless or inactive. No, I don't got much more to say on that. But it's a great track.
It is a great track, and again, can we just try starting over? He says at the end, and keep saying it and keep saying it. It's almost not helplessly repeated to the point of not meaning anything, but it's interesting that is the end to it, and it is just that. That it's not even a sample really, just that live bass holds it all together really, really well. We get into something a bit more traditional with the follow-up, which was produced by Chemo, old number 7.
Spitting so chemical, Mr. Incredible, the essence of creation contained in my testicle, so egotistical. You don't want to get technical, I turn you to a very sad spectacle.
As I said before, this beat to me drives me insane. Wow, like that's sort of the clipped legato. Like, I'm not really doing it justice there with my garbles, but there's something so accomplished about the way that Jehst weaves around it, and I think the writing here is next level. Just the way it sounds illustrate the acetate envisioning the anime, sipping on the Alizé, pissing in the alleyway.
Yeah, I think you should be a beatboxer, Tom.
Oh, I'm missing my calling. Yeah,
I'll drop a beat and you can. Yeah. Let's go. No, I think I do really love Chemo's beats as well. I feel like him and Jehst are a good team when they do stuff together. I like after those mid sort of I don't know, the trio of tracks, I suppose, where he is really deep and sort of reflecting on stuff and how fucked up everything is. He's kind of back then to the reference heavy, playful vibe of the earlier tracks. So like, and also I mean, like, if you can be cocky, do it like Jehst, because like. My favourite bit on this, when he's the whole sort of stanzas where he's like prototype poetry, flowing type vocally, overnight brainchild, growing in the ovary, spitting so chemical, Mr. Incredible, the essence of creation contained in my testicle. Like, that is just
so egotistical. Is the follow up as well, yeah.
But it's not just like I'm the best on the mic. It's so beyond that. I was saying a bit about earlier, just every line counts, but just like. He's just got such a natural flair for this sort of thing. He can say Mr. Incredible, the essence of my testicle, only a track after he's saying he's a complete waste man and loner, and get away with it just because he's just gifted and you just believe him. And I think it's just a reminder and demonstration of his skills where you're kind of distracted by the sheer vibe of it all and how he's being a bit more musically experimental. So this is kind of oh, by the way, I'm still
oh yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and popping off in your house like SodaStream. That's just that's fire.
SodaStream, yeah.
So again, that's a Renford Rejects type old school reference. And, you know, Jehst calls himself things throughout his career. I'm this, I'm that. I love I'm the communist plot.
Yeah, I'm the whole plot. I'm not just the communist involved in the plot. I am the plot.
But I mean, there've been multiple communist plots in history, haven't there? So it's just kind of like there's something about that phrasing that feels so powerful for me. I'm not quite sure why.
I think he's also, again, it's another Jean-Charles de Menezes.
Yes, that's right.
Reference there. Police want to stop me on the Stockwell Tube. 8 shots from the Glock. I think it was gunshots to his head.
It was in the Stockwell Tube, yeah.
Yeah. So, and also he's back on his vegetables again. He's going on about cabbage and peppercorn and
vicar in the parish that'll split up your marriage.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, he's got I think he's not. What I love about Jehst as well, he's not ashamed to go for the sort of kind of English or quite British references, and it doesn't all need to be sort of these Americanized sort of. He doesn't use always American slang. He kind of I'm going to reference cabbage and vicars in the parish and what else does he say? Like all this sort of stuff, and like it's relatable and it's very English, but it's also cool as hell.
Yeah. Just it's seamless. It really is going through it, and he does get a lot of even just like sipping on the kestrel, peppercorn crushing with the mortar and pestle, which is just words that rappers don't normally say, ideas that rappers don't normally touch upon. Areas of the house that are unintruded normally by verses here, and it is a braggadocious track that the Jehst does pretty much better than anyone, really. Because I mean, braggadocious tracks can grow quite boring if they're not creative, but Jehst is firing on both cylinders on old number 7.
Yeah, you need the vocabulary. The only person I can think of in the UK scene who has a vocabulary on the same level is probably someone like Jan Baxter,
right,
in terms of the kind of esoteric and the mix between that and the more sort of obvious and accessible. I think Jehst is just on another level to most guys when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah, and talking of other level, I've never heard a song that sounds like this. This is the illest.
You ain't really listening, B. Sunshine, everything I spit is vitamin D. Eyes bloodshot red with a vision of green. Bruck pocket, but fuck it, I'm living the dream. Looking goofy, that Steve Buscemi. With a shorty, that shield Pachetti. Silver tongue like a steel machete.
Yeah. I think there's one bit in the chat that he's like, "Yeez," and that's my reaction to it. I think he's a whole another level of swag on this one.
Yeah.
I think this is the best hook on it. He's just in like full "I'm the king" mode. But yeah.
It's, I mean, it's got that sort of chirpy left field flute going on and that heavy, deep warble. And the opening sample, which I knew from this song, and then I watched Southbound and Down, and it's from that. So I remember watching it, I was like, hang on, where do I... Oh, it's from the fucking illest. And yeah, it's, it's got a hark back, can they kick it, get the drummer... Just... I don't know. Jehst he flows like a river in this one. He's a genius.
I've not even watched Southbound and Down, but I've seen the clips of Will Ferrell. He's talking about
his plums,
just all the sort of outtake stuff.
Yeah.
My plums.
Yeah,
I feel it down in my plums.
The
juice. Like that stuff is side splitting.
It's
so funny. I've watched a bit stuff with Will Ferrell in it. Like it is really, really good. What's the other one where he's talking about going with his wife Donna and all that stuff? Check that stuff out if you've not seen it. Type in Will Ferrell.
I've seen the plums. I've not seen Donna, so I'll check that out.
Dude, check out the one where he's just like thrusting down on her and just all this sort of shit. It's like you can see on set they're just splitting themselves laughing. But yeah, no, like the sample where it's just I'm the best in the world. It's kind of the most brazen sort of thing you can possibly say, and I think what I like about it as well is he isn't just sort of like screaming his head off saying I'm the best. His voice is a bit sort of heavier and kind of slurred in the mix on this one, and I feel it's deliberately to kind of emphasise how laid back he is about it. They can just roll this shit off. Like he's got a verse in here, he's like, "Oh, I'll be doing this till I'm living in a $1 million villa in Mauritius, kill a lyricist and leave him swimming with the fishes. That's not really easy to say.
No.
But for him, it's like, yeah, I'll throw that shit away like it's nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not an MC really, but that seems tricky to run through. So
yeah. And again, I just want to reinforce how unusual this song sounds. It's very spacey. I'm not describing it very well. I'm sure if you listen to it, you'll know what I'm saying. And just, Jehst exists like he was born to rhyme on this beat. Living the dream, looking goofy like Steve Buscemi, with a shorty like Shil Pachetti, which is quite an obscure reference. And silver tongue like a steel machete. Perfect.
Guts hanging out your belly like spilt spaghetti. Yeah.
Empty your wallet like a Philly cigar shell, and I roll a joint like an LMNOP. It's just again, it's just that phonics.
Yeah, whenever I please, whether lemon cheese or the peng is Lebanese.
The peng is Lebanese.
Oh, the illest shit the world has ever seen.
Oh my god!
This is one of, in terms of just the coolest. I feel like Jehst, when you first hear him, you might have this image of him as this kind of geeky sort of rhymer just because he's just so intellectual. But there's too many instances where he also just comes across as cool as fuck as well. He just has this sort of presence to him. The only other track that really reminds me of this one in terms of his presence and his vibe is the Schooled By verse he did for SBTV.
Okay.
Which I don't know if people have heard that. But
I haven't heard that myself, no.
Oh, it was a verse that Jehst did. They did a whole bunch of legends. It was sort of, they had the real sort of, deep rhymers, the Rodney P's, they had M9 on there. I said Jan Baxter as well. I think they had Roots Maneuver as well. And it was just because obviously SBT do a lot of grime stuff and sort of more kind of hyped sort of rappers. And it was like Jehst sort of came in and sort of just he was like, oh, last time I checked, I was still the fucking king of things. It's just it's a real sort of quite short verse. And he ends with it. He's like, do your homework, kids, eat your greens. I'm still new school compared to what came before, do you know what I mean? But it's just, he's just spitting knowledge. I feel like on this one, he's kind of that same sort of presence of just by the way, just in case you hadn't noticed, I've been doing this a fucking while and, you can't fuck with me, basically.
And it's a very common grime thing to have a sample that's just a repeated phrase and the verses will play off that. And Jehst is doing that here. No, they can't. And him because it's just the same thing, but it feels like they're having a conversation that he's interacting with the beat. And having that southbound and down thing at the top of the beat as well, again, is playing into that just pure disregard, really, for any convention. And
this is a Jehst beat, sorry, I should say as well. And,
yeah.
I think it's Apollo comes back as well.
Yeah. This is clearly, but this is one of my favourite Jehst songs. I think this song's quite remarkable. Yeah,
it's definitely up there. It's one that I would love to see live. I mean, when I seen him in October, as I said, I don't know if I said this before, he played bunch of stuff off the new album, which was great, but I mean, other than High Plains and Starting Over in the encore, he didn't really do much else. And I think it would have been nice if he threw some of these cuts in there just to kind of mix things up, because this is a real sort of, this will get if you throw this on at a party or something. This is one of the few Jehst tracks I think I've had on a playlist or whatever, and it's come on, people oh, this is some smooth shit. Do you know what I mean? They can vibe with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's a shame really, because you see it in the rock and metal world all the time. Bands will go on tour and playing classic album back to front. And Jehst, please go on tour in some galleries and do Return of the Drifter, do Dragon, do Falling Down,
Some artists hate that shit though, don't they? They want to play the new stuff, and I understand that, I suppose, but I feel how sick would an album night, if he played all the albums back to front, I'd go to it.
Oh my god. So we move into a song which is continuing ideas put forward before. Sounds Like Money.
Getting on my Del Boy trotter, Rodney, don't be a plonker. I don't need to be much longer. Seeing numbers like Neo, De Niro, pesos. Put the city on the payroll. Power and influence, accounts out in Switzerland. Wrist, neck and mouth glistening.
Which again is about desiring more, and I think the sampling here is fantastic as well. I love the synths that play against him as he's talking about capitalist dreams, cannabis trees, I'm hungry, this cracker needs cheese, and the use of money, in there as well. The sounds of coins being spilt desperately onto shop counters. The world of this track, in terms of the sound, I think is expertly sculpted.
Yeah. Is that the sample from that track though? I'm thinking of, was it money, 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 money?
I'm pretty certain it is. It sounds like
it. Yeah. It does have that vibe to it anyway. But yeah, I think this is it isn't one of my favourites on the album, I must admit, just because it's again that kind of, he's really playful and sort of comfortable, and the verses are good, but it's kind of, I don't know, somewhat similar to the previous two tracks, but not as kind of hard hitting for me. But I mean, that's not to say it's a bad. I suppose for me, maybe people disagree with this, but I suppose I find the way this album is structured a little bit. We talked about the middle sort of tracks that really stand out. I suppose in comparison to his first two records, I think this has got a slightly weaker run of tracks towards the end than they do. That's not too much of a slight, but
no,
I just feel like, especially because there's a couple of tracks that are coming up I really think are good, but I think this one doesn't jump out of me quite as much. But I mean, I think one thing I do like about it is that, again, it demonstrates how experimental he was at this point in his career, because the stanzas are a little bit sort of choppier, and the gaps between bars kind of allow his lines to resonate a bit more. And there's that kind of droning bass to it, and he's again like back in the mix, and I like the image of the character he kind of builds up, especially on the second verse. But yeah, it's not the one that jumps out at me too much, but still good. Yeah,
I think it's cohesive. Parent influence accounts out in Switzerland. This high flyer on the helicopter sipping on my cranberry vodka. But I think the second verse is definitely stronger there. I'm a popular brer, but my pockets are bare. Need to fill them full of cream like a chocolate eclair.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's tight, man.
Yeah, and lots of just slang really in the first as well. Mozzarella and ricotta, mature cheddar, more feta, steady wonga. Mastery of words that Jehst is exhibiting throughout both of these songs. And
I have to say, man, also I already mentioned vegetables. I've not had my dinner yet, by the way, as we're recording this, and this shit is making me hungry as hell. Just calling me and put the broccoli in there. I know he's not talking about actual broccoli. No. But I could go for a bit of broccoli. Do you know what I mean? It's the way he puts it across. I want like chocolate eclairs and bottles of bolognas, man. It just sounds lavish as hell. It kind of reminds me of Camp Lo Lucchini or something like that. One of those classic kind of tracks where it's just like, I know that he's kind of being ironic, especially after he's talked about struggling and all the rest of it. It's kind of satirical, but at the same time, he does put across with his kind of character, that like, it almost sounds kind of lavish. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's that duality that we're talking about. He plays opposites off each other, and there's tracks on here that just seem almost vice versa to each other. So yeah.
Yeah, it almost sounds like the Matrix numbers falling. It's hard to reinforce here, but I think just the backdrop that he paints across is fantastic. I'm just chopping up the break until it sounds like money, and Sounds Like Money's a great song title as well. And then at the end, the outro's him asking questions. What are you going to do for the guap? How many units you got a shot? How many losing the plot? Investigating this idea, and it kind of forms a sort of duo, I suppose, with the following track, Back to the Drawing Board.
You're way out of your depth. Last dregs on my coffee, blueprint spread out on the desk. Stress ball in the clenched fist. Pencil behind my ear. Now let's organize this here. We strategize for the king size share. Living on solid air.
Which again is about lacking ideas, and a reference that I go crazy for on this song. I don't know if you're aware of John Martin, the Scottish folk artist.
Well, of course, man. He's in the Scottish curriculum. You have to know who
Is
John
he
Martin
really?
Is, but no, I'm joking. But I do know who he is.
Yeah. He's personally one of my all-time favorite songwriters ever. Like, I'm crazy about John Martin. So for Jehst to say "Living on Solid Air," which is of course a reference to John Martin's Solid Air album dedicated to Nick Drake, that made my heart beat, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think Yeah, again, we're talking about references. Another one that I caught on this one was, folks may remember Tommy Evans, who did a verse on, I believe it was the trilogy.
Yes,
really, really sick verse.
yeah.
Basically, best known as remembered as a ginger dude who converted to Islam, who's not C major.
Right.
So so he did he's got a verse in here. I couldn't give a fuck if Tommy found Allah. I'm still propping up the bar. You know, he's not quitting anytime soon. I mean, I think that's quite playful. I don't think he's firing shots necessarily, but Jehst and Tommy Evans, they came from the same sort of that early 20s kind of vintage sort of style when they were releasing albums. That Task Force as well. They were in that real kind of early 2000s UK hip hop. There was a type of album they were all sort of dropping down that sort of time that was, I don't know. It was just all of its time. Do you know what I mean? And it was a real sort of UK hip hop sound that they established. So, but yeah, that was another reference I caught, was Tommy Evans. But yeah, I think on this is quite a busy sounding track, I feel, which is maybe a bit sort of overbearing for Jehst. But again, that's obviously because I've already rambled on about how I like Jehst on his simple looks, where he can be a bit more creative. But yeah, no, it's again. You can't really criticise any of the verses on this record.
None, absolutely none. I would struggle to criticise lines individually as being poorly crafted.
Yeah.
You know, just the world.
Again, more food. He's talking about Nutella, man.
Yeah, just the world he paints in so few words. Blueprints spread out on the desk. Stress ball in a clenched fist. Pencil behind my ear. That's like an E. E. Cummings poem.
Damn, E. Cummings. Yeah, to be honest, you've got more of these poet references on deck than I do, Tom. I can't remember half of these.
No, it's all
but
good,
I think,
man.
but yeah, E. Cummings. Yeah, sure.
E. Cummings, John Martin. We're a long way from Cracker and C major, dear listeners. I'm sorry if you're listening and expecting bars here, but
it's all right. I'm here to reference Tommy Evans. And he says, and Run DMC says as well.
Tommy Evans. I remember the trilogy. I think he's the guy that has the line that I always remember. He's like, my crew roll in 4 packs like lager cans or something like that. I think he says something in that thing. But
yeah. Oh, I don't know if that's him or that's Ricochet.
Might be Ricochet. Yeah, it's been a while since I heard that.
I feel like Tommy's verse is the one was it my drink shots, dicey demons in the ink blot, something like that.
Right.
Try to decipher the meaning of the riddle. He can really flow, Tommy. He's like, sorry, we're not here to talk about Tommy.
No,
shout out him.
It's all good. Well,
whether he's into Islam or not, like,
it's all good. It's all good.
So, yeah,
he was on a Jehst track, so he's immortalised forever. But And I don't know about you, if you felt this way again, but this song, the beat, similar to Thinking Crazy, it feels very over the top, but in fact, what he's talking about kind of undermines that, subverts it.
Yeah, it's subversive. Yeah, he does that quite a lot on this album, in that he kind of leads you down a rabbit hole and gives you an impression of what the track's going to be, but then when you actually break it down, it's not necessarily that. I mean, I also like, I don't know if you picked on this, the kind of the song titles really correlate with what he's talking about. So when he's thinking crazy, well, True Intention for the album, zombies kind of fit the sort of the sci-fi sort of vibe he's going for. When he's thinking crazy, he's literally fantasizing about robbing a bank, starting over again and really sort of getting over some shit. And the illest, he said, well, I mean, that speaks for itself. Sounds like money, and now here he's back to the drawing board almost with his style. So I don't know, it's kind of like every single track seems that it's been very well crafted. A lot into that, but yeah.
And I love the end as well. Jehst loves to end songs in interesting ways. Often the sample will crumble or there'll be some repetition. Here we have, don't understand, and it always just sticks with me in my ear. I just always remember that part as well, the sort of bourbon bass and longevity whenever falling short, ceremonial gown scroll and mortarboard. Now we push into the next song, Poison.
To the sphere, is it just the atmosphere, the trees and beer? My people's here, but I'm distracted. I need closer interaction. A mouth moving, my mind's eye read the caption.
Sweet vanilla, saccharin, I'm sliding up under your skin, so poisonous. I'm slipping in. Where do I end?
Which reminds me again, Jehst rarely really writes about women, to my mind, and not as extensively as this. I think this is probably the song that is most exclusively about the fairer kind.
Yeah, it is. It's also one of the only tracks, I think, that has a vocal hook that's by somebody else, or
Yeah.
that's bespoke for the track kind of thing, especially by sort of a female kind of soulful kind of singer. I think she's called Graziella, which I don't know who that is, but yeah, I mean, unsurprisingly, I do prefer the beat on this one, just based on what I was saying before. I mean, he doesn't. I really like the verses on this one a lot. It's quite, and I'm not crazy about the hook, but I really like the verses, and sort of, it is quite intimate, and it's that kind of classic metaphor relating, sex and relationships to poison. And it's new territory for Jehst almost, which I rate. I think around this time, I think whatever you think of this album, or where you rank Jehst's albums against one another, I feel like this one is really where his artistry really came to the fore, and he wasn't afraid to sort of jump into this sort of stuff. I don't know what you think about the topics, but yeah.
And for me, again, it is just this so accomplished. So what's your poison, he asks, as a question. Mine's right there. Watch her hourglass figure as she sits in the chair. Everything fits right, like the kick and the snare. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I hate to use the word sensual, because it's not like an erotic sounding song to my ears, but there is kind of that dynamic to it at play when she's saying, I'm sliding up under your skin, I'm seeping in, and all this sort of stuff. You'd like to say it's like a positive chat, but the way he kind of distracts it, he says it's all about what he needs. I need closer interaction. She's pulling me into the sphere, and he's sort of talking about his mind's eye, and there's a disease in my soul, and she looks like you. It's kind of this is really weird. It kind of reminds me of that episode in Friends where Monica's seeing that guy and he's a poet, and she's like, oh wow, he's writing poetry, but then he's talking about the empty vase. Right. And it turns out he's actually, that he's like, oh god, you're the empty vase, that's what he's saying. And it's kind of like there's something poetic and beautiful about it, but at the same time it's another example where Jehst, even when he's rapping about women and love and stuff, he doesn't seem like he's entirely drinking it all up and entirely satisfied. I think that comes across quite clearly.
Definitely. I remember in ESP and Falling Down, he has that line, she wears me out like jewellery, which has always stuck with me. And he talks about needing closer interaction, being distracted, and the chorus is very sensual, sliding up under your skin. But obviously, it's poison that's being spoken of, and that never has a good end. And the fire of desire in your bedroom eyes. He's inevitably lighting up the Kaya. Jehst can't just be intoxicated by the female presence. There has to be some secondary thing there, and I like the mood of this song a lot, and I think the verses are really interesting. He's not dropping gems as he normally does. He's building more of a movement, of an emotional landscape. But I think for the most part, it's strong.
If I had to criticise any line, which I barely do with Jehst, I suppose I'm not a big fan of the phrase "bedroom eyes" because I think it seems a bit too obvious for Jehst. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's transfixed by the way she moves. I feel like if there's one thing you can say about Jehst, he's never cliched. And I feel like as much as he's experimenting for him, maybe it's shakier ground for him talking about relationships and being a bit more personal about his love life or whatever. It's just not something. It's not corny, and it's not tasteless, and it's not kind of embarrassing in the way that you think about. I don't know. When you think about all the sort of, if you think about these sort of, when a lot of these sort of braggy rappers go into the personal, and it's all this sort of, girl, I just want to hold you down. I just want you to do your thing. I mean, I always find that shit super cringy. Sure. But so I like that he doesn't do that. But I do think even the kind of sort of the notion that she's this sort of here's a poem reference. I'm going to match you here.
Let's go.
Let's go. Seamus Heaney's The Skunk, it reminds me of, actually, where he's talking about how she comes in and she's this animalistic presence, and he kind of breaks her down like that. I mean, I suppose there is that kind of sense of it. There is that poetic element to it. I do think he's kind of grappling with some of that, but I don't think it's necessarily where his strongest writing stems from. So
no, I certainly agree. And one of the callbacks that I like in this record is we get an interlude.
My life's gone astray. With you on my mind, 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 with you on my mind.
We get an instrumental. You know, we get something very much, to me at least, this interlude in the vein of Bluebells. You know, where we have quite an ancient sample and quite a modern drum beat, and none of it seems contrived. You know, just to refresh your minds, it's the one that's like, with you on my mind, with you on my mind. Yeah. You know, it plays to the strength of both sources. I mean, just quickly, because it is a quick thing. What are your thoughts on the interlude?
I wrote down some notes for this. I put, Jehst loves a good interlude.
He does.
And then I wrote, with you on my mind, and then I put, not studied this enough.
No.
So, as you can see, I'd not put a lot of effort into that. I apologise. But, I don't know, I feel like it's the same as, I think, we said this on Falling Down. I remember some of the interludes, I was just like,
Some of the Falling Down ones aren't very good.
I like this one more, but it's just, there's not a lot I can say about it. It's just kind of, I suppose, it's if you had to break down with you on my mind, what does that mean in the context of the record? And I suppose he tackles that a little bit on the next track, but yeah.
And the next track is Tears in Rain.
The same old same. I've seen it all before and I'm sure that I'll see it again. Strange days when people act in strange ways and end up locked in strange ways for the way they behave.
To me, I think musically is one of the high points. I think especially when his verse kicks in. So we have the arrangement of the instruments, this sort of medieval pan flute that sounds like something out of Thomas Wyatt's Courtier days. And, you know, it's very emotive, the rumble and the rain. But that horn that plays as he's doing his verses, I find it quite heartbreaking. There's something very powerful when I listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of horns and stuff and all that kind of, and sax and all the rest of it is kind of used very effectively in hip hop to emote almost, and kind of, it's almost like that panning back to the jazzy sort of soul stuff that a lot of people grew up with. But maybe it's something you don't hear a lot from Jehst necessarily. So yeah, it's an interesting thing he samples or puts together. I don't know. I think towards the end of this record, you start to see another side of Jehst. I suppose his voice is a greater clarity, and I feel like he's kind of opening up a bit more, and that vulnerability is something that you don't clock as much on his older material. And, you know, you see all that sort of stuff. I'm broken down. I hope there's no one to see my tears. And I suppose after the kind of braggadocious sort of, you know, the list, it's such a contrast. And I feel like that's the point. Again, I've said this already, but I mean, he's very precarious in where he's at mentally here. And he's gone through the mill. No matter how talented and creative he might be, you know, he's had some tough times. I feel like, as someone myself, you know, who's gone through a bit of, you know, anxiety and depression and stuff, I do resonate with the message of the track and how it's put across. And yeah, and I do really love that beat as well.
Yeah, it's very moving, and him just when Jehst plows his internal strife, you know, it's always captivating, and talking about moving out of his mom's house and, you know, not being able to earn money and sort of the niche he's carving. And, you know, what are Tears in Rain, effectively? They aren't seen. And they are just quite a sort of cliched image, but one that he mines well here. What do you make of sort of the theological idea of the hook at the end? If there really is a God, I must owe my life. If God exists, then I owe my life.
The repetition of that's interesting, isn't it? It's I think maybe that is an age thing. I don't know. He gets a bit more existential and a bit more thoughtful about some of that stuff on some of the newer stuff. He does it on Billy Green is Dead as well, which I'm sure we'll tackle at some point. I think when he talks about years of pain, you really, really feel it, and I think that's something I've not really caught from Jehst before. I think he's whilst as I say, I mean, Return of the Drifter, my favourite record, obviously, I find it flawless in so many ways. I suppose if it is missing one dimension, is that it doesn't try to disarm you too much. I suppose it's not bold enough to kind of. I mean, on stuff like Alcoholic Offer and sort of Liquor Soaked Sentiments and stuff, he's kind of grasped with this idea of this sort of, like Bukowski, this Alcoholic Offer, this writer that has his demons, and that's a character that's, I don't know if that's Billy Brimstone, whatever character he's sort of playing. Maybe that's a dimension that he's dealt with before, but I think on this album, he really sort of opens up and kind of and says, listen, this isn't just sort of like a romanticized vision. It's not a romanticized vision of this artist who smokes and drinks and all the rest of it and is still creative, like, and has demons. It's like no, these are the demons. I'm going to show you them, and they're really quite powerful. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just it's putting it across in that way that's just that little bit more grabbing you by the heartstrings, and I think that's okay, and I think he does it well. As I said, I'm Poison. Like, I find some of the lines a bit cliched, but I think this one, I don't know, maybe it's a bit less forced. I don't know. I think it works that bit better. I think it's a bit of a highlight.
Yeah, there aren't as many quote-unquote bars here. I think maybe something like Strange Days, and people act in strange ways and end up locked in strange ways, which maybe has been said before. It feels a little bit like, maybe even Strange Ways, Here We Come by the Smiths sort of anticipating that to a certain extent. But yeah, I like this track. I touched tracks tenderly of a suicidal tendency, which I don't know if is a hark back to the the band, the LA Vatos, Robert Trujillo and his Merry Men. But yeah, it's a decent song. Timeless, the follow-up.
Something timeless. We elevated. And we creating something. Golden sunshine, Corona alarm. It's a league game, smoky over the land.
For me, this is maybe not a low point. It's still a good track. It's just not very memorable in the sea of standouts.
Yeah, I'm okay with it because I feel like it's the penultimate track. It starts to wrap things up a little bit, I suppose. It's a bit more playful. I like the way. One thing I do like on this one, I like. If I'm taking you back to high school English here, obviously, but I like the alliteration that he uses. I've noted down here, that when he's talking about ghost ship, galleon, skull and crossbones, parrot on my shoulder, I don't want to know, pieces of eight, that's the weights that we blow, papers are slow, and then the sibilance of switching my speed, play this on repeat while you're twisting your weed. I mean, that's just very, very simple literary techniques, but it's just a wee hark back reminder that kind of Jehst, even as he's developed in his career, always in the back of his mind, he's always thinking of the best way to put things across. And the reason he's such an addictive guy to listen to, I think, for people who appreciate good writing, is because he's a good writer.
You put it well.
As the title suggests, I think this one's a bit more existential. Again, it kind of wraps up some of the themes on the record, the alienation of it all, but also the importance of creating regardless of what's going on around you, and there being a virtue to that, I suppose. And also just, what does he say? I'm creating something timeless.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter how he's doing it. It's what he's doing. Old school scroll, sagas unfold when the Pro Tools roll, pure gold, and playing between these two mechanics. Again, the hook itself is a bit like Zombies for me. I'm not too much of a fan of it. It feels a little bit dated here. I like but it's fine. There's the fretless bass doing what it does here, and
it's one of those verses that one of those choruses that kind of just like, he's like, and we're creating something timeless. We're elevating. It's one of those kind of ones where it's just like, this is what we're doing. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, in case you missed it.
It's a very old school sort of type of hook. I like it in the kind of cheesy sense where some of my favourite old hip-hop, it's just like, and what we're doing, we're elevating, we're bringing stuff up to standard, all that kind of shit. It's all good. But it's for Jehst, it seems a bit jarring because it's not like his thing. But
I'm not calling the track filler at all. I think there's some really nice writing on it throughout, and it's fine. But as I say, it doesn't stand out as strong to me. Now, we get to the final track, which is actually the title track.
That'd be dead wrong. The dragon stays steady and headstrong to captivate many when he's penning his next song. Waiting with bated breath, creating this constant whispers of anticipation.
Quite nice that it's the closing track as well. On Falling Down, the song Falling Down, it had a beat like nothing else on the record, you know. I mean, I think on Falling Down, the beat has its own prelude, you know, to sort of temper you for how good it is. 2.4, in brackets, A Dragon of an Ordinary Family, doesn't have that, but this beat, John, you know, to me, this is going to sound a weird way of putting it. It feels almost like a haze rising. It has this very disembodied sense to it that I just think so compelling.
Yeah, I don't know what I could really add to that. It's kind of the image I kind of have of it as well. And I suppose the reason I talked about existential before is when we were talking about the themes of this record, about how it's just that, you know, the kind of fantastical and the mixture of that with the sort of more mundane, as he puts it. I suppose this is the track that really befits that, and kind of the beat kind of similar to the way it kind of opens is that kind of, as you say, smoky kind of weirdness to it. That is that. I don't know, that just he can kind of do so, and I don't know, it kind of reflects a child's imagination. I think that's the best way I can put it. Do you know what I mean? That's what I read into it.
The album cover, right, which we should touch on briefly, is, I don't know if it's Jehst himself, but it's a young boy in a Superman costume with his arms aloft.
Yeah, it's that kind of, because I mean, it's the weird thing is when you listen to this album, it doesn't seem like it's an album full of hope and full of aspiration. It's kind of saying how messed up everything is, but it's also an album that's willing to sort of be escapist and say, well, all this is going on, but you know, the beauty of music and beauty of art and the beauty of creativity is that we as humans can aspire to something better by using our imaginations. I mean, that's something I feel like Jehst is really passionate about, and it's kind of reflected on. I think this is the perfect way to end the record, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, I do think this record probably is a couple of tracks too long. I suppose, yeah, if you were to drop a couple.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
For me, it'd probably be something like Sounds Like Money or something like that. Sure. But I don't know, I just feel like this is a good ending for it. It's not a track that I'd say is like I'd want him to play live at every show or anything. But I just, in the context of the album, it's good. Yeah. And it's got some great imagery in it as well.
Terrific, yeah. It's sort of a Bildungsroman, as it were, and you know, it just has this quite spooky quality, for want of a better word, really. But it does, you know, definitely out there, and The Dragon of an Ordinary Family as well is just such a fantastic title. I really, really like it. And talking about to ram the dance floor of any jam with as many fans as he can, clamouring and clapping their hands. It's an exhibition, as it always was with Jehst as well, fighting down vampires from dusk till dawn. And yet again, we have this heavy bass underneath that almost feels like it's stumbling over its notes in the best possible way, as this kind of higher frequency registers above. Any closing thoughts on this track?
Not really. I don't know. It's at this point, it's just this track just encourages me to look back on the whole thing, and I suppose I feel like this track is more. One observation I would make is he starts off on this album, I suppose, on True Intention, being very sort of frustrated and paranoid and miserable, and while he's not entirely left that vibe, I noticed that the imagery he's using here is that little bit more sort of, it comes from a more innocent place, I guess. He's talking about, you know, deep in the forest, all hail the beast, and he's talking about the birth of the giant, and he's referencing dragons or something. And yeah, and even when he's talking about himself, the kid spits flames, it's almost reinforcing, and he's saying the boy's got heat. He's calling himself by these terms and contrasting it with the gargantuan and the massive and the ridiculous and the fantastical. And I suppose it's a reminder that after all the shit that's gone on, it's almost reinforcing it. At the end of the day, you know, all this stuff comes from our imaginations, and who has an imagination like a child? Do you know what I mean? And yeah, and also I like the sort of the scratch bit at the end, where it's sort of, you know, the dragon of an ordinary family, that's sort of coming out, sort of disembodied. Like, the dragon is getting stronger in the belly of the mother. Hope you're a fast runner. It's just a very eerie way to end it.
Yeah,
it's very Jehst. That's a really cool little nugget.
And that is The Dragon of an Ordinary Family, 2011, a wonderful release. And as you said before, we will be back probably in a few months. I don't know exactly when, but we will be tackling Billy Green is Dead, which I have to be honest, I've not listened to too much. I've listened to a little bit when it came out, but it sort of fell by the wayside in terms of listening. I've been a very bad Jehst fan, but hopefully his podcasts make up for it. But we will be back to cover that, and I hope everyone listening has enjoyed this. Our thoughts on the album. Please comment below. Let us know what you think. What are your favourite tracks? What do you enjoy? What don't you enjoy? What do you think would improve? What would you take out? Would you take anything out? Get in touch with me as well. battlerapresume@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @battlerapresume. John, I know you work on many projects, many different things. How can people contact you? How can people find your work?
Yeah. So, as I say, always scotlandstandup.co.uk. You can check all our podcasts. JonathanRimmer.com if you want to know more about me. Yes, I have my own website.
Wow.
I'm that dickhead.
Let's go.
It's a useful thing for the industry I work in, so that's my justification for that. Hosts all my work. You can catch the stuff I do for magazines on there. I do some videos for the BBC up here as well. What else do I do? I don't know, follow me on Twitter, Rimmer Journo, as I say, RAMMER, like Red Dwarf or whatever your imagination conjures up. Journo for journalist, or you can follow Scotland Stand Up at SSU Pod. And other than that, I think we might be doing another pod soon, aren't we, on World Dom 2?
That's right. We will be. Yeah.
Yeah, which should be good.
There's a lot of battles to watch. Actually, I've watched quite a lot of them today. Yeah, there's loads to watch. So
some of them are fresh in my mind. Luckily, that's why I chose that event, because I think it's 4 or 5 that I can remember vividly. Anyway, if people will be sick of me soon enough.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, man, and I love talking about Jehst with you, and I love talking about Jehst in general. So check out our episodes before, our Jehsticulation episodes. If you want even more Battle Rap Resume, Jonathan Rimmer, we covered the Scotland event, the Don't Flop Scotland event. We previewed and recapped it, which was a hell of a long time ago now.
Wow.
But yeah, we are going to be doing classic event review as well, like we've done with 4th Birthday and To the Test 10, and we are going to be covering our first international event with World Dom 2, which I'm really looking forward to. I'll put all the links for the description and all the stuff that John has said before. But yeah, this has been great, man. Thank you as always for coming on.
Pleasure as always, man. Have a good one.